It was an ordinary Thursday morning in the bustling office of Henderson and Company, logistics company known for its cutting-edge technology and sleek offices. As the elevator doors opened on the main floor, a wave of noise surged forward, phones ringing, printers whirring, and the endless chatter of employees in their cubicles. The hum of productivity filled the air, creating an illusion of harmony and efficiency. In the midst of all this, one figure moved quietly through the aisles, unnoticed by most. Martha, the elderly woman who cleaned the office, had spent the last 2 decades mopping floors, dusting shelves, and maintaining the spotless appearance of the company's headquarters. Her hair was a soft grey, and her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the desks, a far cry from the youthful energy of the other workers. Martha, though, had been working here long before the new generation of employees had arrived, long before the trendy tech that now filled the space had even existed. She had seen it all, the rise and fall of countless executives, the shifts in leadership, and the changing tides of corporate culture. But what she had never gotten used to were the whispers and mocking remarks of the younger staff, who, when they thought she wasn't listening, found amusement in her age and her position. "She's so old," one of the younger employees remarked to his colleague. "How does she even still get around? I feel bad for her. They should have retired her by now." His friend, who had a reputation for being sharp-tongued and dismissive, chuckled. "I know, right? She's probably been here forever. Just a cleaner. Imagine being stuck doing that at her age." They both laughed, oblivious to the fact that Martha was just a few feet away, quietly pushing her cleaning cart toward the break room. She had heard these kinds of comments countless times, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that the cruelest words often came from ignorance, and that it was best to stay silent and move on. But today would be different. Today Martha was no longer just the office cleaner. Today she was the woman who would turn their world upside down. The office buzzed with excitement as a new announcement was about to be made. There were rumors circulating that the company's longtime CEO had suddenly resigned, and speculation was rampant about who would take their place. A few employees gathered around the water cooler exchanging guesses. "Who do you think is going to be the new CEO?" one of the women asked. "Maybe they'll promote from within," a man replied. "It could be someone like Liam, right? He's been here for years, and he's been with the company through all the big deals." "Yeah, or Olivia," another woman chimed in. "She's been making all the right moves lately. She's so sharp. I think she could really take this company to the next level." Just then, the doors to the main office opened with a soft chime, and in walked the CEO's assistant, a young woman with a clipboard in hand. She didn't make her usual rounds to greet the employees, and instead she headed straight toward the back hallway. The employees exchanged confused glances. Why wasn't she giving her usual morning announcements? Why wasn't there the usual chatter about what to expect next? Then the doors swung open again. This time it wasn't just the assistant who entered. The figure that followed was none other than Martha, the elderly cleaning lady. Her presence commanded the room, and she wasn't wearing her usual old uniform. Instead, she was dressed in a tailored suit, dark, elegant, with a crisp white shirt and a pearl necklace that shimmered in the overhead lights. The silence in the office was palpable as every head turned to look at her, eyes wide with disbelief. But it wasn't just her appearance that caught everyone off guard. It was the aura of authority that radiated from her, something none of them had ever expected from the woman who had quietly swept the floors for so long. A few employees exchanged glances, unsure of what was happening. They had no idea who this woman really was. And then the assistant spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our new CEO, Martha Henderson." The room went silent for a moment as the reality of the situation settled in. A few of the younger staff members exchanged bewildered looks. They thought it was a joke. It couldn't be. Martha, the cleaner, the woman who had been mocked for her age, her status, and her role in the office? But Martha wasn't done. She stepped to the front of the room with the grace of someone who had spent years learning to navigate spaces where she wasn't always welcomed. She looked out at the staff, all of them now wide-eyed, some with their mouths open in shock. "I'm sure you all have some questions," she said, her voice calm and steady. "But let me make one thing clear. I've been here for 22 years. I've watched this company grow from the inside out. I've seen the highs and lows, the triumphs and failures. I may not have been at the front of the boardroom, but I've always been part of the team, and I've seen more than most of you think." There was a tense silence as she continued, her gaze moving from one employee to the next. "It seems there were some misunderstandings about who I am. Maybe you thought my job was beneath you. Maybe you thought because I was quiet, I didn't understand what was going on here. But that's where you were wrong." The tension in the room grew, and the mockers from earlier stood still, their faces flushing with embarrassment. "I've worked hard in every role I've had," Martha continued, "and now I'm here to show you what true leadership looks like. We will succeed together, but we will do so with integrity, with respect, and with a commitment to making this company one we can all be proud of." The room was silent for a few moments longer, the weight of Martha's words hanging in the air. And then, slowly, a few employees began to clap. First one, then another, until the entire office erupted into applause. The young staff who had mocked her were now the ones red-faced and ashamed, realizing just how wrong they had been about the woman they had so carelessly disrespected. Martha smiled, the warmth of her genuine expression filling the room. She knew that this moment would change everything. No one would underestimate her again. From that day forward, things were never the same at Henderson & Co. Under Martha's leadership, the company saw a resurgence in its values, respect for one another, regardless of position, a commitment to hard work, no matter the title, and a focus on unity instead of division. As for the staff who had mocked her, they learned the most important lesson of all. Respect is not about appearances or titles. It's about the heart, the character, and the work you put into the world. Martha had come full circle, not just as a cleaner, but as a leader. She had shown them all that greatness is never limited by age or position. It's earned through the choices you make, the kindness you give, and the respect you demand. And from then on, every single employee who entered the office knew that Martha wasn't just the CEO. She was the heart of the company, and no one would ever forget it. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the office shifted. Employees began to feel the weight of their previous judgments about Martha, the elderly cleaner who had quietly observed everything for years. Now, as their new CEO, she was commanding the room with confidence, earning respect through her wisdom and calm leadership. The younger employees, who once laughed at her age and position, began to reflect on their actions. They couldn't believe how quickly things had changed. Martha, the woman they had once dismissed, was now the one leading them forward. In the weeks that followed, Martha made subtle but impactful changes, the first of which was implementing a new company policy: respect in the workplace. It wasn't just a set of rules, it was a reminder that each employee, regardless of their role, deserved to be treated with dignity and fairness. It wasn't just about the work they did. It was about who they were as people. One afternoon, as Martha walked the floors, she noticed a few of the younger employees huddled in the corner of the office. They were talking, but their voices dropped when they saw her approaching. It was the same group who had mocked her just weeks earlier. "I want to speak with all of you," Martha said, her tone calm but firm. The group stood up quickly, shifting uncomfortably. They knew this moment had come, the time when they would have to confront their actions. "Martha," the first employee spoke, his voice faltering, We're really sorry. We had no idea who you really were. We just assumed you were just the cleaner." Martha raised her hand, stopping him from continuing. "No one here is just anything," she said. "You're all valuable members of this company, but your respect for others should never be based on assumptions. I want you all to remember that." The young man nodded, his face reddening in embarrassment. "We didn't mean to offend you. It's just, you always seemed so quiet, and we never realized how much you knew." "Quiet does not mean unimportant," Martha replied. "Sometimes the quietest ones are the ones who see the most, the ones who know how to listen." The group stood there, humbled by her words. They had mocked her for being old and out of touch, never realizing how much wisdom she had gathered over the years, and how much potential she had to offer. They had misjudged her. "We understand," the young woman added, her eyes sincere. "We've learned a lot from you already, and we'll make sure to treat everyone here with respect from now on." Martha smiled softly, a hint of approval in her eyes. "That's all I ask." Word spread quickly through the company about Martha's no-nonsense approach to leadership and respect. Her message was clear. No one was above or below anyone else. Everyone was expected to contribute and treat each other with decency. Martha had created an environment where the highest-ranking executives, the new hires, and even the janitors knew they were on equal footing. There were no egos, no boundaries. The changes she introduced weren't just surface level. She reorganized departments, focused on employee well-being, and provided new opportunities for people to grow in their careers. Every decision she made was thoughtful, rooted in empathy and fairness. Her first big project was rebranding the company's image. Henderson & Cobos had always been known for its cutting-edge technology, but it lacked a human element. It was a company that pushed innovation but forgot the importance of community and the people behind the work. Martha took the bold step of reintroducing their core values, values that went beyond numbers and spreadsheets: respect, collaboration, and growth. These weren't just buzzwords for Martha. She believed in them. She knew that the most powerful businesses were the ones that focused on their people, not just profits. Her leadership style was unconventional, but it worked. As the months went by, Henderson & Cobos flourished under her guidance. Productivity increased, turnover decreased, and employees were more engaged than ever before. There was a new sense of pride within the company. One day, Martha received an email from one of the employees who had once mocked her. The subject line read, "A thank you." "Dear Martha, I wanted to personally apologize for how I treated you when you first became CEO. Looking back, I can't believe the things I said, and I'm truly ashamed. You've shown all of us what real leadership looks like: humility, empathy, and strength. You didn't have to teach us these things, but you did. And for that, I will always be grateful. Thank you for your patience with me. You've changed my perspective on leadership, and I hope I can become someone like you in the future." With respect, Martha read the email and felt a warmth in her heart. The journey she had begun as a quiet cleaner had come full circle. She had managed to transform not only the company, but also the people within it. She had created an environment where even the most skeptical employees could see the power of respect, kindness, and understanding. One of Martha's biggest challenges came when a major deal was at risk. The company was in talks with a new investor who seemed promising, but as the negotiations progressed, it became clear that the investor was more interested in making quick profits than in long-term growth. He was demanding changes to the company's core values, demanding that they cut costs and push employees harder than ever before. The board members were divided. Some believed that agreeing to the investor's terms would ensure financial success, while others felt uneasy about compromising the company's values. Martha called a meeting to address the issue. As she sat at the head of the table, her face calm but firm, the room was silent. She had always valued transparency, and today was no different. "We have a choice to make," she began, looking around at the executives. "We can take the deal, secure the funds, and change everything we stand for, or we can stand firm in what we believe, knowing that the right path isn't always the easiest one." There was a moment of tension as everyone processed what she had said. The room was divided, but Martha's words were cutting through the uncertainty like a blade. Finally, the head of the board spoke. "Martha, you've been guiding us through this, and we trust you. If you believe that maintaining our integrity is the right choice, then we'll stand by you." Martha nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "Integrity is everything. Without it, we have nothing." The deal fell through, and Martha's leadership was put to the ultimate test. Yet, her decision proved to be the right one. In the months that followed, another investor came along, one who shared the company's values and vision. With them, Henderson & Co. has soared to new heights, more successful than ever. Years later, Henderson & Co. was the leading name in its field, not just for its innovation, but for its approach to business. The lessons Martha had taught her employees had permeated every aspect of the company. Employees who once disrespected her now looked up to her, and her legacy of respect was carried forward in every aspect of the business. Martha often walked the halls of the office, now filled with younger employees. Every time she passed them, they greeted her with genuine smiles and respect. She was no longer the quiet cleaner. She was the woman who had taught them all what it meant to lead with compassion and integrity. And the most remarkable part? The company continued to thrive, not because of its high-tech products or its bottom-line profits, but because of its culture, a culture rooted in the values Martha had instilled in them. It wasn't just about cleaning up office floors anymore. It was about cleaning up hearts, minds, and attitudes, one respectful action at a time. As the years went on, Martha became a symbol of perseverance, strength, and wisdom. Her leadership style had transformed Henderson & Co. into a company that not only thrived in the business world, but became a model for ethical corporate behavior. What once seemed like an impossible feat, leading a high-profile corporation with integrity and compassion, had become Martha's trademark. Under her guidance, the company expanded its reach, breaking into new markets and building partnerships with like-minded organizations. Yet, even as Henderson & Co. grew, Martha never lost sight of the core values that had made her company successful: respect, fairness, and the importance of treating every person with dignity, regardless of their role. One of her proudest achievements came when Henderson & Co. launched an initiative that provided job opportunities for underrepresented communities. It was an idea Martha had carried with her for years, one that had come from her own experiences working on the outskirts of the corporate world. She had known firsthand what it felt like to be overlooked, underestimated, and judged. Now she was using her position to help others who might face the same challenges. The initiative, named Elevate, aimed to provide training, mentorship, and employment to individuals from marginalized communities. Martha worked with the board to make it a priority, and soon employees from all backgrounds were not only finding opportunities but excelling in roles that had previously been closed off to them. Martha's vision of a more inclusive workplace became a shining example in the business world. She was invited to speak at conferences, sharing her story of transformation and success, and encouraging other companies to invest in their people, not just their profits. But despite all the success, Martha knew the road ahead was not without its challenges. As the company grew, so did the complexities of managing it. The more employees there were, the more diverse the perspectives, the more intricate the decisions became. And while Martha had always prided herself on her ability to listen, even she couldn't prepare for the new wave of criticism that came with her rising profile. A group of long-time employees began questioning Martha's approach. They felt that the company was losing its edge, that Martha's focus on ethics and inclusion was slowing progress. There was a growing divide between those who had supported her from the beginning and those who felt that the company was losing its competitive advantage in an increasingly cutthroat market. "Respect and kindness are wonderful," one of the senior executives said during a tense board meeting, "but they aren't going to help us beat our competitors. We need to push harder, take risks, and move faster. This isn't a charity, it's a business." Martha listened quietly, her face calm but her mind racing. She understood the concerns. She knew that balancing the human side of business with the pressure of growth and competition was no easy task. For a moment the room felt heavy with uncertainty. Would Martha's commitment to her values hold up under the intense scrutiny? Was it possible to stay true to the principles she had built the company on while also competing in an increasingly demanding industry? Martha took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She had spent her life learning to navigate difficult conversations, and this was no different. It was a test of her leadership and a test of the company's values. "Look," Martha said, standing up slowly, "I understand the pressure we're under. I know what it's like to feel like we're falling behind. But let me tell you this. The foundation of this company is built on people. It's built on the idea that we can't leave anyone behind in the race to success." She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person present. "What sets Henderson & Co. apart isn't just our technology. It's how we treat people, our employees, our clients, and the communities we serve. The minute we forget that, we lose what made us special in the first place." The room fell silent. For a moment, Martha wasn't just the CEO. She was the embodiment of everything the company stood for. Her words carried the weight of experience, of a life spent working from the bottom up, knowing the value of every person's contribution. "We're not going to compromise on our values. We're going to push forward, yes, but we're going to do it in a way that honors the foundation we've built. And that means we'll never lose sight of our people, our community, and the trust we've earned." There was a pause, and then, one by one, the executives nodded. Martha had reminded them of the true source of the company's strength. It wasn't just in their products, their revenue, or their market position. It was in the way they treated others. And that was something they could never afford to lose. As the years passed, Martha's vision continued to guide Henderson & Co. Even after stepping down as CEO, Martha remained an influential figure in the company, now serving as its chairwoman. The company had grown to a point where it was no longer just a business. It was a community. And that community, Martha's legacy, was more powerful than any product or market share. Her story became an inspiration to many, not just within the company, but throughout the business world. It was a story of redemption, of resilience, and of the strength that comes from embracing the humanity in everyone around you. When Martha retired for good, she did so with a sense of fulfillment. She had done more than lead a company. She had created a legacy of respect, empathy, and ethical leadership that would continue for generations to come. At her farewell party, the employees she had once worked alongside and mentored gathered together to honor her. There were no words of mockery or dismissiveness, only gratitude and admiration. They all knew that Martha wasn't just the cleaner who became the CEO. She was the woman who had changed their lives, their company, and their understanding of what true leadership really meant. Martha smiled as she stood at the podium, surrounded by her colleagues, who were now more like family. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for believing in me. I believe in each of you, and I always will." And with that she left the office, her office, knowing that her legacy would continue to shine, not just in the success of Henderson & Co., but in the hearts of the people she had touched along the way. Years after Martha's retirement, the company she had built was still a beacon of ethical business practices. Henderson & Co. had become known for more than just its success. It was known for its unique approach to leadership. The values that Martha had instilled were now deeply embedded in the company's DNA. New hires were taught her story from their first day on the job, a reminder that every role mattered, and no one was ever just anything. Her successors had followed in her footsteps, striving to maintain the culture she had created, even as the world around them grew more competitive. Yet they often found themselves looking back at Martha's leadership, still amazed at how much she had achieved, not through force or power, but through integrity, respect, and a genuine belief in the potential of people. But even beyond the walls of Henderson & Co., Martha's influence continued to be felt. She became a sought-after speaker at conferences, invited to share her thoughts on leadership and the power of kindness in business. The world was beginning to catch up with the values she had championed long before they were trendy buzzwords. Martha knew her influence had spread when she received a call from a young entrepreneur who had started a non-profit organization aimed at helping displaced communities find work and dignity. The entrepreneur, who had heard Martha's story in a business leadership podcast, wanted to know how she had navigated the early challenges of building a company that balanced profit with people. The conversation was simple, but it was full of meaning. "I don't have a magic formula," Martha had said, "but I believe that if you treat people like they matter, they will surprise you with what they can do. That's how you build a great company." One evening, several years after her retirement, Martha sat in her favorite chair at home, looking out the window at the sunset. Her life had been full of extraordinary moments. Moments that had made her feel proud, moments that had tested her, and moments that had left an indelible mark on the world. But one of the moments that brought her the most joy wasn't in the boardroom, nor was it a high-profile business deal. It was the day her granddaughter came to her with a question that made Martha feel as though her life had come full circle. "Grandma," her granddaughter asked, sitting beside her, "how did you become the CEO of that big company? I've heard all the stories, but I want to know how it felt when you were cleaning the office and everyone thought you were just the cleaner." Martha smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Well, sweetie, it didn't feel good at all. But sometimes we have to go through hard times to show others who we really are. When people look down on you, you have two choices. You can either let it get to you, or you can rise above it and prove them wrong. I chose to rise." Her granddaughter listened closely, her eyes wide. "That's why you always tell me to never judge people by how they look or where they come from, right?" "Exactly," Martha said, her voice gentle but firm. "The world can be quick to judge, but if you want to be a leader, you need to see people for who they really are, not what they seem. It's about finding the value in everyone and treating them with kindness and respect. That's how you make a difference." The two sat there in silence, the weight of Martha's words sinking in. She had passed on her wisdom to another generation, one that would carry it forward, just as she had done for those at Henderson & Co. The years passed, and Henderson & Co. continued to thrive under the guidance of new leaders who had been molded by Martha's influence. The company's approach to business remained the same: treat employees with dignity, listen to the voices of the unheard, and value respect over profit. Martha's story was no longer just hers. It was the story of the company itself. And even after her death, the company honored her memory in every decision they made. Her legacy wasn't just in the buildings or the billions the company had earned, but in the hearts of the people who worked there. Every employee knew that they were part of something greater, a company that had been built on a foundation of respect. Her granddaughter, now a young adult, decided to follow in her footsteps, entering the business world with a passion for the same values her grandmother had espoused. She founded a mentorship program at Henderson & Co., aimed at helping young people from all backgrounds rise through the ranks, much like Martha had done. As time went on, the company's culture of inclusivity continued to flourish. New policies were introduced to further foster an environment of equality, and each new CEO was chosen not just for their business acumen, but for their ability to uphold the values Martha had fought so hard to instill. Martha had planted seeds of change, and those seeds had grown into a thriving legacy, a company that was not just financially successful, but one that had changed the way people thought about business. On her tombstone it read, "She taught us that every person matters." It was a simple statement, but one that encapsulated everything Martha had stood for. She had lived her life as a testament to the idea that greatness isn't determined by title or wealth, but by the way we treat others. Through her actions, Martha had shown that leadership is not about dominance, but about lifting others up. Henderson & Co. continued to honor her memory, celebrating her life and her vision with every success they achieved. Her legacy lived on, not just in the company, but in the hearts of every employee who had worked alongside her, learned from her, and been touched by her kindness and wisdom. The ripple of change she had started so many years ago continued to spread far and wide, inspiring countless others to lead with compassion, to look beyond the surface, and to treat every person with the dignity they deserved. As the decades passed, Henderson & Co. became the model of corporate social responsibility, often invited to speak at forums and events discussing business ethics and leadership. Martha's name was synonymous with integrity, and her impact on the company and its culture remained strong. New generations of employees came and went, but Martha's story continued to serve as both a guide and an inspiration. In the latest chapter of the company's growth, Henderson & Co. was expanding into international markets. The company had earned a reputation as a place where employees felt valued, not just as workers, but as individuals with unique perspectives and potential. When the decision was made to expand into Asia, the company's leadership, which now included Martha's granddaughter, thought back to the days when Martha had faced her own challenges. They understood that the key to international success wasn't just about business strategy or navigating different markets. It was about building trust with people, respecting cultural differences, and working alongside communities in a way that felt genuine and reciprocal. Martha's granddaughter, who now served as the Global Diversity and Inclusion Officer, was instrumental in ensuring that the company's core values were upheld as Henderson & Co. entered new territories. Her role wasn't just about making sure policies were in place. It was about continuing the work Martha had started, about understanding the importance of respecting people's backgrounds and fostering an environment where everyone, no matter where they came from, could thrive. The company's first international office in Singapore was a reflection of that commitment. The team there was diverse, made up of local employees who were encouraged to share their ideas and who were treated as partners in the company's success rather than just workers. The office quickly became a beacon for the company's approach to business, and the success they experienced in Singapore became a model for expansion into other countries. Martha's values had set the stage for Henderson & Co. to be a truly global leader, not just in revenue but in corporate culture. As the company continued to grow, they made a conscious effort to stay grounded in the principles that had made Martha's leadership so revolutionary: respect, empathy, and a commitment to ethical practices. Several years later, as Henderson & Co. celebrated its 75th anniversary, a grand celebration was held at the company's headquarters. It was a night to honor the journey the company had taken, and more importantly, to honor the woman who had started it all, Martha. The event was held in the newly built Martha Hall, a stunning space that housed the company's headquarters and its museum, dedicated to Martha's incredible journey. The museum displayed artifacts from her early days as a cleaner, photographs of her rise to CEO, and mementos from key moments in her leadership. There were video interviews with former employees, many of whom credited Martha for changing their lives, employees who had gone on to become leaders in their own right, spreading Martha's values across the world. That night, as the company's top executives and employees gathered to celebrate, Martha's granddaughter gave a speech. She stood at the podium, her eyes scanning the crowd of employees, many of whom had never known Martha in person, but whose lives had been shaped by her legacy. "Tonight," she began, "we honor not just a great businesswoman, but a great human being. My grandmother taught us that true leadership is not about titles or accolades. It's about the people you lift up along the way." She saw value in every person, no matter their position. She believed that everyone, no matter where they started, deserved respect. And because of that, Henderson & Co. is what it is today. The room fell silent as her words settled in. Everyone present knew that they were part of something much larger than themselves. It wasn't just the success of the company that they celebrated that night. It was the spirit of inclusion, compassion, and respect that had been cultivated under Martha's leadership. As the evening drew to a close, the employees gathered outside the building for a final toast to Martha's legacy. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, and the stars above seemed to echo the idea that Martha's story had reached far beyond what she had ever imagined. Years later, the time would come for the new generation to take the reins of Henderson & Co. Martha's granddaughter had now served as CEO for several years, and under her guidance the company had become one of the most influential and respected corporations in the world. But as much as she had honored her grandmother's legacy, she knew that the company had to evolve. The world was changing, and the company had to change with it. In a heartfelt farewell speech, she reflected on the lessons she had learned from Martha. You don't lead by making others follow you. You lead by showing them how to lead themselves. This company was built on the idea that everyone has something to offer, and that no matter where you come from, you matter. I'm so proud of what we have built, and I'm confident that our commitment to these values will guide us into the future. And just like that, another chapter began, with new faces and new leaders stepping forward, ready to carry Martha's legacy forward. But no matter how much the company changed, no matter how many new chapters were written, one thing remained constant. Henderson & Co. would always stand as a testament to the idea that real leadership wasn't about power or control. It was about lifting others up, recognizing their worth, and treating them with the dignity they deserved. Martha had taught them that, and it was a lesson that would never be forgotten. When Martha's name was mentioned years after her passing, it was no longer a story of an overlooked cleaner who became a CEO. It was a story of a woman who had transformed an entire company, an entire industry, and a generation of leaders. Her life had been an example of the power of human connection, of the strength found in compassion, and of the difference one person could make when they believed in the potential of others. And even as the world moved forward, the lessons she had taught continued to resonate. Martha's legacy lived on, not just in the walls of Henderson & Co., but in the hearts and actions of everyone who had ever been touched by her story. It was a legacy that transcended time, a legacy that would endure forever. As time moved forward, the story of Martha's rise from humble beginnings to becoming a trailblazer in business was no longer just a company legend. It was a global narrative. Educational institutions across the world began to incorporate her life story into leadership curriculums, using her journey to teach students about integrity, kindness, and the true meaning of success. Her story was told in books, documentaries, and countless interviews with leaders and innovators who had taken inspiration from her values. Martha's influence had gone beyond the walls of Henderson & Co., reaching people in every corner of the globe who now saw her as a beacon of what true leadership could look like. Martha's granddaughter, now the CEO, found herself invited to speak at universities and conferences across the world, sharing her grandmother's story and the powerful lessons she had learned from her. "It's not enough to be successful," she would say. "You have to be someone who creates space for others to succeed too. That's the only kind of leadership that truly matters." In honor of Martha's memory, Henderson & Co. established the Martha Foundation with the mission to provide scholarships and mentorship programs to young people from underprivileged backgrounds. The foundation's goal was to help individuals who may never have had the opportunity to enter the corporate world, providing them with the tools, education, and support they needed to pursue their dreams. Every year, thousands of young people from diverse backgrounds applied for the scholarships, each one a testament to the enduring power of Martha's belief in the potential of every individual, no matter their starting point in life. The foundation also funded various initiatives that helped employees grow both personally and professionally, with programs aimed at developing leadership, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. The same values that had shaped Martha's career were now being passed on to the next generation of workers, ensuring that the cycle of opportunity, inclusion, and respect would continue long into the future. Martha's granddaughter, who now managed the foundation, ensured that her grandmother's vision lived on. She made sure that the stories of those who had risen through the ranks of Henderson & Co., empowered by the values Martha had championed, were always shared as part of the foundation's message. Each success story was a reminder of what could be achieved when people were treated as equals, when their potential was recognized, and when they were given a fair chance to succeed. On the anniversary of Martha's passing, Henderson & Co. held a special event at the headquarters. The event was not just a celebration of Martha's life, but an acknowledgement of how far the company had come because of the principles she had instilled. The leadership team took time to reflect on the changes that had taken place in the world of business, and how Henderson & Co. had adapted yet remained true to Martha's core values. "We are still here, growing and thriving," Martha's granddaughter spoke to the gathered crowd, "because we never lost sight of what truly mattered. We've always been a company that values people first, always striving to be a company where everyone can feel empowered, respected, and heard." The event was also a reminder to everyone in attendance that, though the company had expanded and evolved, the lessons Martha had taught would never be outdated. She had shown them that success was not just about profits, but about people, and that the power of empathy and respect was timeless. Martha's legacy was not only immortalized in books, speeches, and policies. The employees who worked at Henderson & Co. and the people who had been touched by her life continued to carry her spirit forward in everything they did. One day, a new employee arrived at Henderson & Co. He was an eager young man from a small town who had grown up in a family that didn't have much. He was amazed by the company's commitment to equality, its emphasis on collaboration, and its ongoing support for his personal and professional development. His first day at work was filled with excitement, but he was also nervous. It wasn't long before he learned about Martha. Through a mentorship program, he was paired with a senior leader who had worked alongside Martha and who had learned from her directly. "You know," the senior leader said one day, "there's something special about Martha's approach to business. She believed in us before we believed in ourselves. If you want to be a leader, start by recognizing the potential in those around you, even when they don't see it in themselves." The young man was inspired. As he grew in his role and gained confidence, he began to live out the lessons he had learned. He made sure that the people around him knew they were valued. He made time to listen, to understand, and to elevate others. Martha's values continued to influence not just the company's leaders, but every employee, young and old, who came through its doors. The world had changed dramatically since Martha's days as a cleaner, but the core lessons she had taught were as relevant as ever. In an age when so much emphasis was placed on individual success, Martha had proven that the true path to greatness lay in how we treat others, in the ways we help others achieve their potential, and in the strength of our integrity. The ripples of her kindness had spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined, and her story continued to inspire a new generation of leaders. Leaders who knew that success wasn't just about climbing the ladder, but about helping others climb it with you. And as Henderson & Co. continued to grow, expand, and innovate, Martha's name remained etched in the hearts and minds of all who worked there. She was no longer just the former cleaner who became the CEO. She was the embodiment of the values the company held most dear. Martha's legacy was not simply one of business success. It was a legacy of humanity, of understanding that real power lay in lifting others up, of treating every person with respect, no matter their title or role. It was a legacy that would live on, as the world continued to remember not just the woman who led a company, but the woman who had shown the world the true meaning of leadership. As the years passed, the world began to change even further. The business landscape evolved with technology, new industries, and fresh challenges. But what remained constant was the spirit of Martha's leadership. Employees at Henderson & Co. and those who worked with them across the globe knew that they were part of something far bigger than a successful company. They were part of a movement that believed in the dignity of every person, in the power of empathy, and in the strength of unity. They were carrying forward the torch that Martha had lit so many years ago, a torch that would continue to burn brightly, lighting the way for all who followed. Years later, as the headquarters of Henderson & Co. bustled with activity, the memory of Martha's early days remained alive in the hearts of those who walked the halls. The company's success was no longer just measured by its financial achievements, but by its commitment to values that mattered, values that were forged in Martha's own life story. The story of the cleaner who had risen to become the CEO had inspired countless others, inside the company and beyond. But it wasn't just a story of business success. It was a story about people. It was a reminder that each person, no matter their background or circumstances, had the potential to make a difference. As the sun set on another busy day at Henderson & Co., the company's employees gathered in the courtyard outside. They took a moment of silence to reflect on their shared journey, to honor the legacy of the woman who had brought them all together, and to remember the lessons that would forever guide them. The legacy of Martha, the cleaner who defied all odds to become a CEO, had not just changed the company. It had changed the lives of all who came into contact with her story, teaching them that true leadership was not about titles, but about treating others with respect, dignity, and fairness. As the night sky stretched overhead, there was a quiet understanding that the company's future would continue to unfold, just as Martha had once dreamed, built on the foundation of kindness, empathy, and the belief that everyone deserved an equal chance to succeed. And as the company continued to grow and thrive, one truth remained unchanged. Martha's legacy, born from humble beginnings, would always be the heart and soul of Henderson & Co. The story was more than just a part of the company's history. It was a living, breathing testament to the power of one person's belief in others and the extraordinary impact that belief could have. Martha's name would forever echo in the halls of the company, in the stories shared by those who worked there, and in the values that would continue to guide future generations. Henderson & Co. wasn't just a company. It was a movement that carried forward Martha's vision, a vision that would never fade. It was a legacy of inclusion, compassion, and the simple truth that every person mattered. And as the moonlight bathed the grounds of the headquarters, the story of Martha, still as powerful as ever, remained a symbol of the incredible potential within every person, waiting to be discovered, nurtured, and celebrated. Her story had come full circle, and as long as Henderson & Company stood, Zrenia Martha's spirit would live on,